Hello everyone, hello to my fans, my subscribers, and those who are not my subscribers. As we go on and on, the lessons are getting more interesting day in, day out. Today is another day that we are going to look into beginner series 002, and I'm certain that you are looking forward to take in what I have in store for you. So previously I mentioned that we are building up. These are beginner series to mean we are building on top of each and every item that we've learned previously, so that objectively by the end of this given course, you are able to be confident enough to express that you can manage to do proper bills of quantities, and you shall have learned even much more than that. So before we do anything, as usual, I would urge everyone who has not yet subscribed that please do so. Take a minute, please subscribe. Yes, the silence was for you to subscribe, and I believe that you have done so. Now we'll continue with our session for today. So today we are building from where we left. Just a little recap from what we did in the previous episode. Yeah, we were learning about we were introducing now the general rules applicable for the roles of a quantity surveyor, in as much as doing your bills of quantities is concerned. And I have to mention that I'm glad that from the previous session, interests have got to rise by time, and we have more of my viewers asking that we do more of the bills of quantities. And I want to assure you that this given content, it's for you guys. It's for me to share with you what I understand based on research, based on typical work of a quantity surveyor. So there is no cause of alarm. We are going to build it together. By the end of the day, you shall have gained confidence that you are able to do what is exactly meant for you to do. Now, being that you've subscribed, then we are going straight to the content of our presentation today. And today, being even more interesting than previous sessions we've had, we are going to, as the presentation is reading over there, today we'd like us to cover we are going to explain the three basic components of this given session. So at number one, we have just a topic overview of what I would like us to learn today. Then we'll go for the reasons for the SMM, which is now the standard methods of measurements, and then now the specific parts of the standard methods of measurements. I'm sure that you'd be asking yourself that why can't we start straight away, go and build our bills of quantities, and also learn how to measure straight away using the drawings and so on. You are right, I would ask the same, but remember that when you have not built properly, when you don't understand why you are doing a given item the way you do, then you will have so many questions than you will have the answers. So we'd rather build on it bit by bit, step by step, until at that time when all the gaps that you might be having along the way are fully answered, and then you have a concrete presentation that you on yourself, that you are able to defend whichever reason or whichever decision you take while doing your professional duty. Now, topic overview, that is the first content that we are presenting today, is regarding why we have to cover this given item. So today we are going to cover the SMM, and it's important that you note that normally when you are heading towards a given direction, then it's just important that you know you have the final item already figured out, or you figured out exactly what you are intending to get at the end of the day. So for this given session, of course, you understand that within the channel there are going to be other items to be learned. But then for this given series, we are learning and heading towards making a proper bills of quantities. Now, being that you are aware that you understand the term of that bills of quantities, just as a reminder, is now items or elements of works which is now heading towards or that's undertaken towards building or making the estimate of construction of or building works, so to say. Now I would like to just present to you the next item here, and that is this is a summary. This is a summary of one of my works that I've done for one of my clients. So in this given summary, you will see that we have different items and how they follow each other. So before you reach here, then it definitely must have followed a given process, or it might have followed a given reference in that order, so that you have this given presentation taken in this manner. So this given order is now where we refer to it from the standard methods of measurement. So for a typical bills of quantities, you might have a summary of this nature. So before you get to this summary, why did you have those figures there? Now that is the amount. But then from the amount, it has been built from different items, elements of work that is now going to they are going to build up and make for you the quantity or the amount that you are seeing at this given point. So for instance, we have sections, we have elements, this is a page, this is the amount. Now when you see the sections, those are the divisions. That is following from a given reference. Now that is why we need to learn the standard methods of measurement, because it's given it's given clearly that you need to have a preliminary section, you need to have builders work in terms of substructures, reinforced concrete, walling, roofing, and so on and so forth. Now that brings it now puts into perspective our desire to learn the standard methods of measurements for today, so that you know that you can't have all your items grouped together, because the professionalism indicates that you need to separate them in that given manner. I believe that answers your curiosity that why do you need to learn the bits of SMM, how important is it? So it's important because it gives you the main reference of how to separate your work, organize your work like a professional that you're yearning to become. So that is the beauty of it, and that is the main essence of learning that. So for now, we'll just brush through this given summary of the section. For instance, that is one. We have preliminaries, contingency. For builders work, we have the items listed below there, substructures, reinforced concrete, walling, roofing, rainwater disposal, waterproofing, windows, doors, pergolas, external finishes, internal finishes, joinery fittings, railing, and balustrading. Then now we have the services installations, mechanical installation and electrical installation. So yeah, depending on whatever is available within that given drawing that you have been given. So you need to separate your work in a manner which resembles the main reference of doing this doing the bills of quantities. So it's imperative that you understand, you need to learn and master that this is how I need to do my work, this is how I need to separate those given sections in a manner that is professional enough and is in relation to the main reference that is now the standard methods of measurements. Then we have external works, also the items which are available for this given item. The items that were available in that order are as given in that given presentation. Well, now we've talked about the overview. I've given you the reason why we need to understand that we need to learn our standard methods we need to internalize and get properly what we are doing in terms of this given session. Now, just to emphasize on why we are going to rely on these standard methods of measurements. From the previous presentation, I elaborated well that standard methods means the standard methods of measurements for building works, and associated civil works in Eastern Africa. So this is the one that I've started with in the elaboration. So there will be other given sections or presentations where I will be presenting maybe the other three that I hinted yesterday. That is now the new rules of measurement. We also have the SMM2 and so on. So for today we are focusing on the standard methods of measurements for building works and associated civil works. So to mean it's majorly on building works, but then within the building works we have other small works of the civil, which are civil associated. So in those civil smaller works will also be forming part of the discussion of this given session. So you'll realize that as we'll be learning these building works, there will be one or two items which is concerned about civil works, but they will have to be covered within these particular sessions. Take note of that. So number one reason I told you yesterday, that is the uniformity, because once QSA, quantity surveyor A and quantity surveyor B have done their work, they have done their job, they need to be relying on one reference, so that whenever you've given your item to the other party, then it should be noted that reference is one, your basis of reasoning is one. So that is now what defines the professionalism as it is. So that is why we need to learn it. Reason number two is because of the ethic and good practice. So when the good practice is maintained, then it's important to note that you are doing your item in a manner that is acceptable within your region and also beyond. So whenever you're being referred to as QS, then you have that given reference that you've done. Okay, so you have that given reference which is not questionable. So we need to understand it so well that whenever a given job has been done from a given way or from a given party, then it's important that another related another colleague within that particular field is able to understand that this is what has been done, and was it right or not right, based on which conditions, this and such. That said, now we are going now to look into now the specific parts of the standard methods of measurement, so that we see which are now the specific parts that led to now our separation of the bills of quantities the way we did. So you understand how these items are relating, and why now we need now to know that this is the flow, and this is where I need to put this item, and this is where I also need to put this particular item. Also, before I move into that, just a point to make on another reason that is also very crucial for learning of the standard methods of measurement, is because the main reference or the main group that is providing cost, which can be used maybe by the government and also individuals who are doing their own job, and that is now the professionals, so-called the quantity surveyors. You realize that there is an item, or there is a handbook called cost handbook. So this cost handbook from a body called IQSK. Now you realize that this cost handbook is providing references for cost or rates which are acceptable within that particular area. So those rates are also going to rely on this given method of measurement. So you measure based on the standard methods of measurement to get your quantities, and then in terms of rates, you can either build yours in correlation to those that are provided by the cost handbook by the KSK. So realize that whenever there is a hitch of communication between Now the cost handbook, for instance, they provide that you need to measure in this given unit the rate acceptable is this given amount, yet you've done it in the opposite way or in a different way, then there will not be proper communication within those within those given items. So you realize that it's important, as I've emphasized, that you need to learn in one way and you need to also make a relation with the other way, because it's that way that there is a proper communication that is acceptable on how to do or carry out your professional duty. Now, specific parts of the standard methods of measurement, they are quite wide, that is to say there are quite a number, and the handbook is also quite voluminous. So for this session, it's an item that you can always cover by your own in specific areas, but you realize that we are going for this session definitely overlapping into the next session, that is a beginner series 003. You realize that we are going to cover just specific parts of them in summary form, and then those that will be overlapping will be covered in the sessions to come. So for now, we'll just focus on those that are available here. I mean those that are selected for today or for this particular session, and then the rest, as I've noted, will be covered in the upcoming session. And those that shall not have been covered properly or in totality here, then they will be covered as we'll now be doing the actual measurements and building of our bills of quantities. So there is no need to worry, because at the end of the day, when we shall have finished our measurements and preparation of the bills of quantities, all the items possible that we shall have noted will be covered in full. Now let's move into now the coverage of the standard methods of measurement for the parts that we'll be able to cover today. Now we'll just go through now the overview or the content of the standard methods of measurement, some of the items which you are looking forward to finding within this given particular book. Now you realize that in our summary of the SMM, I mean in our summary of the bills of quantities, there are those items which you saw, like preliminaries. Of course, that being a summary, you could only see the figures, okay? You couldn't see now the specific items available within that given so you could only see preliminaries and contingencies as a section, okay? Then you could see builder's work also as a section. So these figures are definitely built from now the specific items within the preliminaries. Now those specific items, where were they gotten from? Now that is now how those items or whatever we are learning today is relating with the other. So preliminaries as a section of the bills of quantities, then it was definitely got from this point. So we have preliminaries separated in that item, okay? So you can see item 1, we have particulars, contract, general matters, temporary works, works to be done by public bodies, works by nominated contractors, and contingencies. So all that talks about the preliminaries. You can note that we have the first one was the general rules, which we'll also cover. Then the item 2 is now preliminaries. So you've related it from the bills of typical bills of quantities, which I've also presented to you. Then you realize that there are some sites that have got demolitions and alterations. That is also covered here, so that every item that you're dealing with, the bills of quantities that I was presenting, that I've presented just a few seconds ago, is not having the demolitions and alterations. But there are some works that I've handled in which demolitions and alterations are included. So in those works, also when we reach that point now, when going to the specific details, I'll present to you now a typical bills of quantities for demolitions and alterations how it looks like, and how the items have been done in relation to the standard methods of measurements. We move on, and now we go to section D, that is talking about excavations and earthworks. You realize that excavations and earthworks is in, let me just show you the part where it's going to be falling. So excavations and earthworks will be falling under substructures, and that as well you are going to see now the details of one-on-one on the applications of that section and how it guides our measurement in that particular order. Then section E is now piling. Generally now for massive construction works, where we have piling done for the purposes of foundation, steel sheet piling, contractor design concrete piles. That is section E. F is concrete work, a very crucial part. Concrete work is falling even in the substructures as well. So in that case, we have those concrete items, for example, pad foundation, concrete column. Those concrete column we have now, the stud, it can also be falling within the substructures. So from the substructures we have also concrete work, and also in the superstructures we have concrete work, especially to do with columns, to do with beams, to do with suspended slabs. All those have got concrete work. Then another one is now walling. Walling is also part of it's also a section on its own in these of our standard methods of measurements. So walling in its different forms, in its different types, okay, it has got subsections. So the subsections of walling is also a section in the standard methods, and when you look at our bills of quantities, it's also coming on it at its own part. Okay, so you see it from the other side. Now the specific items under the walling have been measured in relation to that rule. Okay, so all these sections and how they are flowing is pegged on the standard methods of measurements. So we need to really pay attention into that, because it's the foundation. Literally, it's the foundation that you need to learn so that you are able to properly make your document with confidence. So it's so important that you rely much on it, you give attention to the details of those items that are contained within the standard methods of measurement. Now when we see again from walling, we also have underpinning. Now those are other different technology items that we'll be looking later on of underpinning the purposes. For instance, when you want to support a given structure where you need to do more work and so on, now that is what we call underpinning. So we'll be looking much into details into these items that are also performing part of the standard methods of measurement. So we have asphalt work, we have roofing. Roofing, you notice that it was also part of our it's also part of the bills of quantity that we are using here for the reference. So roofing coming in its different form, we have roofing, the roof construction on its own, including now the timber work that is going to support the roofing. You can as well have a structural steel for the roof construction. Then we now have covering on top of it, the finishing, the eaves and everything. So all that is falling under roofing and its various parts. Okay, yes, and also carpentry. So carpentry can also we have structural timbers, the ones that I've just mentioned under roofing. So the structural timbers are the ones that are supporting. Structurally means they are supporting a given load for that given matter. So the structural timbers, you can have one, for instance, on the wall, okay, especially in the regions where structural timber or timber wallings are used. So we can have timber supports You can also have the timber on the roof. Now that is now the roof construction made of timber, and so on. So we also have timber boarding, fillets, sundries, then joinery, also forming a major part of these items which we'll be looking into. So joinery, they can come into different forms, and in any given moment you are applying a joinery. Almost, I can bet that in almost all instances, and in one way or another, you have used an item that is from these joinery works, or you've used them. So as I'm told you that in most cases you will find them. So when you take a look at the examples, you will notice we have flooring. Okay, so you can have a flooring made of timber, so that it's already a joinery item. Okay, so we have doors. You can have doors made of timber. That is also another joinery item. So these items, the way they have been done, for instance, you can see there is a door, there are frames, shelves, fittings and fixtures, for instance wardrobe, cabinets, shelves, etc. All those items are being taken care of in terms of measurement and estimation in regard to the provisions that are given in these of our standard methods of measurements. So as we move on, you realize that you really need to master this item. You really need to master the provisions of this document, because it's going to form now the gist of your work going forward. That's why I have not straight away gone to start talking about now the actual works, because when we lack this foundation, we are not going to find it right. We need to get this clearly. That's why I'll say it, I'll emphasize, I'll cover it today in this session and cover it in the next session. Hopefully it will be done. If it's not complete, then I'll also cover it in the other session, because we need to get this running deep in our fingertips. We need to understand it,